Coffee is actually quite simple, I feel like. Really, you're just taking coffee beans, cooking them, crushing them up, soaking them in water, and then drinking it. But quickly, as you start exploring coffee, it gets quite complex, you know? I think I've got 6 different ways to prepare coffee just here in this shop. I feel like every culture has their own way of preparing coffee. I'm Sean, Building 3 Coffee. I was active duty for about 12 years. I got to teach some great guys how to essentially jump out of planes from super high altitudes. Loved my time in the service, but my wife and I decided that being away was tough and decided to do something different. So my wife actually worked for Starbucks, so it's kind of how I got into coffee in the beginning. Is that all? No, Fate. Thank you. And then, you know, deployments, drinking more coffee to stay awake and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where the adventure started for us. It's definitely, I think, more life-giving now, doing this, getting to affect the lives that we get to affect through this business and the interactions we get to have here. You know what I mean? All this just life-giving stuff happens because of coffee. That's what I love about coffee.
Coffee was first discovered in Ethiopia, where the story goes that a shepherd found his goats energized after eating coffee cherries. Coffee began to spread through North Africa and Arabia, and for many years, all the coffee was roasted and shipped out of a port in Yemen called Mocha. In the 16th century, it is said that a man named Baba Budan smuggled out some live plants and brought them to India, and from there, coffee spread across the globe. Coffee is now grown in over 50 countries and consumed all over the world. Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia are the largest producers, while the biggest consumers of coffee are Finland and Norway.
Talking about espresso, the classic Italian beverage, right? Espresso essentially is finely ground coffee brewed under pressure in about 30 seconds into about a 2-ounce shot of liquid. But really, to get that shot to taste good, there's just so much involved. Good equipment, good grinders, good espresso machine, and it really starts with great coffee.
My name is Admire Chamisa. I'm the farm assistant manager and farm agronomist for Utengole Coffee Estate. I was born and bred in Zimbabwe because I come from Zimbabwe, a British colony, where we drink more tea. I knew very little about coffee, to the extent that I thought coffee is the same as tea. It's the leaves which matter, not knowing it's the cherries that give the coffee.
The fruit is called a cherry, yes. Like a cherry we have home. The difference in a cherry is that you discard the stone and you eat the flesh. In coffee, you discard the flesh and you use the bean. My name is Thomas. I grew up in Switzerland on a small farm. I'm a farmer by profession. I have a master's in farming. And then I did real hands-on farming as a farm manager for 10 years and then another 4 or 5 years in Uganda. I am married locally here with a lady from the neighboring village called Sena. I have 3 kids. I came here at Christmas time, 1990, so it's 27 and a half years. A little bit more than half my life. Ending up in a cup of coffee is a long story. It starts actually with a plant you have to establish. These are coffee seeds that will have to be planted into a seed bed. It takes about 8 to 9 months until the tree is ready to go out into the field.
It all starts in the nursery. To me, a nursery is more or less like a kindergarten. If you look at the lifespan of a single plant, it can stretch up to 40, 50 years. Then you need to build a very solid foundation.
It takes in the field about 2 to 3 years to get the first crop, 4 to 5 years to get the full crop.
Good quality coffee comes out of ripe cherries. It's the degree of ripeness which is very, very important. If you look at this one, to me, that's a properly ripe coffee. Like from the color, it's not deep red, that's properly ripe coffee. Yeah.
Our process we do here in East Africa is called the wet processing. That means we remove the flesh and we use the inside. This is called pulping.
Then there is the transportation of pulped coffee to the fermentation tanks.
It goes into a tank for 2 to 3 days, and then you can wash and you dry then the coffee on a tray. And you end up with an intermediate product called dry parchment coffee. We remove basically the outer skin called the parchment skin, which is called hulling, and you end up with green coffee, which is then going into the international market or into the local market for local roasting. My favorite part of the coffee is actually extracting an espresso on a proper espresso machine.
I feel like a hero whenever I'm ordering an espresso or a cup of coffee. After all the hard work that I would have invested during the course of the day. I love coffee. I don't like coffee. I love coffee.
Being a roaster, we get to reach into some of the lives of the people that grow the coffee. And that's where I really started learning about the supply chain and how complicated it gets. Actually, one of our Guatemalan importer, Onyx, they had a hard time finding burlap one year to get the coffee into so that it could get shipped to the United States. The burlap has its own very complex system just to get made and then delivered so that it can get the coffee product put into that. Well, I mean, once it's bagged, it's kind of just starting its journey, really.
When the green unroasted beans are ready for shipping, they're put into burlap bags weighing about 60 kilos and loaded onto containers. The containers are transported by trucks to port, where they're loaded onto ships that take the beans to Europe, North America, and Asia. Generally, coffee travels in 20 or 40-foot steel shipping containers. A 20-foot container holds an average of about 20,000 kilograms of green coffee. When the coffee arrives at port, it's loaded onto trucks and delivered to distributors, commercial roasters, and specialty coffee shops.
The entire system is just mystifying. This happens year after year, harvest after harvest. No one person is controlling it. All these different systems exist and work every year to get coffee to guys like me. It's impressive. I don't know. It really blows my mind. We got a pour over here, guys? Yeah, sweet.
I'm Bevan Kamel. I'm a Kiwi from New Zealand. This is where we do our roasting. Roasting is cooking coffee. That's what it is. We do it in a certain fashion to make sure it comes out vibrant and alive, and making sure that we're not burning it and destroying what flavors are in it. This is our wonderful Probat P12. I'm going to drop this coffee into the coffee roaster. In green, out brown. And in that is a double-walled drum. This is kind of special to Probat, and that's their little secret, what that actually is. And then this is our chamber door. This is where we're going to be releasing the roasted coffee into our cooling tray, again, to try and cool that coffee down as quick as possible so that we're not going to bake our vibrant coffee.
My name is Adriana Rehn, and I'm a part of the marketing department at Probat. And I'm responsible for the shop roaster marketing. Did coffee as a barista and went to Sydney afterwards to work in a roastery there. When I came to Probat at first, I only knew the shop roasters, so I was aware that there's industrial coffee and stuff, but it blew my mind when I walked into the factory for the first time.
We are at our production facility here. We are producing industrial roasters in our facilities, and we also produce shop roasters. That's a Probatone 12, so that means 12 kilos per batch. The roasting drums for the shop roasters. Besides the burner, that's the heart of a roaster. The drum is put into the flame, the cast iron walls are assembled, the cooling tray with the stirrers, they are assembled, and also the burner and the control cabinet is put onto the frame. And the heat, the energy to roast is produced by a modulating burner, which is located underneath of the drum. When roasting coffee, it's always important to have the right air-bean ratio, so the right amount of energy put onto the right amount of coffee. So, and only if that is optimum, then you get a good cup quality.
We're coming to the end of our roast, which means first crack. We'll see it really starting to brown now, and you should audibly hear the coffee starting to crack.
Roasting is one part of the chain. It's roasting, it's cooling, it's grinding, it's preparation, yeah? But of course, roasting is the most important thing in the whole production chain.
You have to know, the most important thing for a good cup of coffee is the grinder. Because without a proper ground coffee, it's not possible to extract a good cup of coffee. Here we are at Malkönig in Hamburg. So Malkönig was founded in 1924. At this location, around 100 employees. We are producing around 700,000 grinding burrs a year. The heart of a coffee grinder is the grinding burr. First of all, we start with a bar of high alloy steel. Then we cut that in pieces. So we put them into an oven. We heated it up to 600 degrees Celsius and cool it down slowly to make it smooth again and take out all tensions before we bring it to the machine. We cut in the teeth. It wasn't a scientist who developed that, so it was some people from here. Then we bring the burrs to a laser to mark the burrs. After that, we grind them flat. We blast them to artificial aging them. Artificial aging means we shoot with glass balls to the sharp edge of the finished burr. With that, we make sure that there is no decrease of grinding performance from the beginning to the end. Clean them, pack them, and ship it to our customers or build it in our own products. So this one, we just assemble on the traditional way, just on a bench with tools in a row. We have around 100 suppliers, between 300 and 400 parts are required to make this espresso grinder. Every grinder is tested with coffee. The gap between the burrs makes the particle size distribution. If you're requiring really a fine espresso, then you can see these holes here, these small holes, and the gap between the burrs are more or less 0.05 millimeters for a fine espresso. For a French press or filter brew, so a very coarse ground, you need 0.6 millimeters. And one burr is standing still and the other one is turning. So means the beans entering here and are ground here out. And the ground coffee is exiting here outside of this diameter. The shape of the burst makes then the particle size distribution, which makes the quality of the ground coffee and at the end the quality in the cup. We cannot make the coffee better, but we can get out the best of the coffee bean. You can go cheap on the machine, but the grinder has to be perfect. So don't save money with the grinder.
We've talked about the grind and the importance of the grinder, but we haven't really dove into the espresso machine yet. We chose La Marzocco, the Linea, because it's a classic. It maintains 9 bars of pressure, which is kind of optimal for espresso, and it's made in Italy. I mean, that's where espresso originates.
Poi nascendo su Firenze, in Firenze, e quando a 360 gradi ti guardi intorno e vedi cose belle, e quindi tu cerchi di farle belle. La passione per le macchine c'è sempre stata, no? Chi ha fatto il caffè qua?
Io no.
Chi era chi ha fatto? This is not going to this. Every time, no?
Piero formally started when he was 16. And now Piero is 83. So basically he spent his whole life in the company building espresso machines. He's the son of one of the 2 founders, Giuseppe. The Bambi brothers, they were well known in Florence as panel beaters. So they were really good in bending metals by hand. And in 1927, one of the 2 brothers, Giuseppe, saw a big potential on the espresso machine, so he decided to try to create a new project, and he asked his brother, Bruno, to join. La Marzocco was the name they chose for the very first espresso machine they created, and the company as well. La Marzocco was a strong symbol of the ancient Florentine Republic, and they were proud Florentine men. The machine you see on the counter are machines from what we call the vertical era. The machine were like that, were with a vertical boiler.
And this is the first machine of my father, the design of my father.
The purpose of that kind of machine was to brew coffee quickly on demand, so do it espresso. Espresso was just the adjective, but was not so easy to work with the machine. The groups, they were all around the machine. The barista had to hug the machine to brew coffee or to turn around the machine. So it was really uncomfortable. And then on the frontal side, you have the steam wand. It was not used to full milk. Nobody used to have milk in coffee shop. The steam wand was a functional aspect to manage the pressure inside the boiler because they had no safety valve. So it was dangerous, it was tricky. That's why Giuseppe, in 1939, he had really a brilliant idea, was to move the boiler from the vertical position to the horizontal position. The steam wand was on one side, so it was not dangerous and was far from the brewing station. And really important, the machine was not so high anymore. So the barista could talk with the customer. So this great idea of Giuseppe made a revolution. So at the end of the 40s, another coffee machine producer, Gaggia, had the idea to introduce the lever system, basically introducing manual pressure, squeezing coffee. With a lever, we moved from 2 bar of the vertical era till a maximum of 14 bar. So we have a huge increasing in pressure. This high pressure make also possible to have the crema in the espresso. Before, people had no crema. The crema is what can lock the aroma inside the espresso. If you have a broken crema, it means that the aroma is already gone.
Quando è cambiato il sistema di erogazione del caffè, abbiamo avuto una pressione idraulica sviluppata da un pistone che era spinto sull'acqua con una pressione di 9 atmosfere, sviluppata da una grande molla a questa leva perché era uno sforzo molto forte per un barista e anche abbastanza pericolosa, perché ogni tanto qualcuno la prendeva nella vista.
And that's why the baristas, they start complaining about their job. And we moved slowly to the 60s with the first semi-automatic machine. And it was in this period that Giuseppe started to be concentrated about the temperature.
Mentre prima su un solo boiler la temperatura era controllata molto male perché era condizionata a un pressostato, in quanto una caldaia sola che fa pressione non può essere controllata con temperatura, ma deve essere controllata con un pressostato per sicurezza, no?
That's why Giuseppe decided to create two separated boilers, one dedicated for the brewing and the other one dedicated for the steam.
Queste sono tutte evoluzioni di macchine erogazione. La prima macchina erogazione fatta dalla Marocco è la GS.
And the core of this technology is the technology we are still using.
So the heart of our coffee machine are the two boilers, stainless steel boilers. There are more than 300 pieces in a coffee machine. The first main part is the production of the boiler. We have got these long bars, we cut. We begin to make holes in these tubes. There is another department that begins to weld. And then they send the machine to hydraulic department. Then the electrical department, so all the wiring, all the pressure sensors, all the temperature sensors, all the brain, because every coffee machine has got a microprocessor unit. Perhaps the most important is called bench test. And these guys has to check everything. And then they assemble all the external body of the coffee machine. Usually in the production line, every guy is doing a phase that can be 10 seconds, 20 seconds. We would like to do the opposite. Today, one of our guys is doing a big phase. He can do one electrical wiring, or he can do one mechanical assembly. Some of them are able to do everything that is needed to do a coffee machine.
We still do everything by hand. It's an art.
You know, Silvia, abbassa io.
It's priceless to have Piero every single day here. He always pushed you to do better. And this is what I mean when I tell you that we still feel the connection with the past and with the mood of the company, because we are still moving in the same direction 90 years later.
Espresso is one of the many simple things that are the product of continual innovation and complex layers of global cooperation, competition, and exchange that no one person or organization could possibly plan or manage. That we can walk into our local shop and get a shot of espresso and not even think of it as extraordinary is a feat of human civilization and the wonder of global exchange.
Our role on this end of the coffee, as the roaster and as the barista and as the shop owner, we're really the final link in the chain. We're kind of where it all comes together.
It's about the beans, it's about the roasting, it's about the grinders, the espresso machine. Countries connected by these elements and economies affected by these elements. And the barista is dealing with all these things in just one shot.
Morning. How's it going? Good. How can I help you?
We have an espresso, please.
Yeah.